The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up on today's show, we'll give you an update on what's going on right here in the Bronx. Plus, we'll include the recent shootings in New York City along with Texas and why one is being labeled as terrorism. And after that, we'll discuss some of the winners and the big winners in New York City's general election last night, which include Mayor Bill de Blasio being reelected, and November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. We'll find out about a new screening program at Saint Barnabas Hospital helping detect the early stages of lung cancer. And lastly, we'll talk about the 4th annual hackathon. Yeah, it's taking place right here at Lehman College's campus. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello everyone, I'm your host Daren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, November the 8th, and of course you're watching Open, a live program bringing the Bronx to New York City straight to your TV set. Now we want to encourage you to stay connected to us, and you can find out more about us at Twitter at BronxNet TV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, a lot has definitely been going on over this busy week, and right now we'll catch you up with some local Bronx updates. Well, starting things off citywide, New York MTA employees are getting 230 iPhone 6s models. They'll be able to use those to help riders to be more informed about train disruptions. Now, 90 of the devices will go to E-train conductors and 140 to platform controllers. Conductors and platform controllers will be able to receive messages for the Rail Control Center for delays, as well as how long they're expected to last and the closest subway routes the riders can take. According to the MTA conductors, they're not allowed to read the messages while stopped at a station. Instead, the conductors will read the message after the doors have closed and the train has departed the station. They'll also be able to make phone calls to the control center just in case of an emergency. In other news, Twitter has announced they are now doubling on the amount of characters people could use to send their tweets. Now, instead of the usual 140 characters, Twitter users will now have 280 characters. The company says 9% of tweets written in English hit the 140 character limit, but most of the time, people are spent editing tweets or not sending them out at all. Twitter hopes that the expanded limit will get more people to tweet more. Now, users tweeting in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean are the only ones who will be keeping the original limit since they can convey twice as more information in less space. Well, this past weekend, millions of New Yorkers participated in the New York City Marathon just days after a horrific terrorist attack in Lower Manhattan. Shalane Flanagan became the first woman to win the New York City Marathon in 40 years. Flanagan finished the course in 2 hours and 26 minutes and 53 seconds. More than 50,000 runners from across the world pushed themselves to the max, running a 26-mile stretch across the city's 5 boroughs. 30 years ago, Lauren Vanong, a Vietnamese refugee, had a life-and-death situation. She was later rescued. She had the opportunity to actually meet up with the people that rescued her and her family nearly 30 years ago. Our reporter, Tatiana Parrish, brings us the inspiring story.
Emotions were high as Lauren Vuong walked down the steps at Maritime College to be reunited with mariners who rescued her family over 30 years ago.
It was your words to the captain that saved us. I don't know how to thank you enough for my parents, for my children.
In 1980, the Vuong family, among political refugees, fled from Vietnam after the war. After the rescue, the Vuong family settled in the United States. With time, Lauren became a successful lawyer in San Francisco, and with that, she began her 20-year search that led her to this moment.
Beyond any dream that I could have had, I first started looking for them in 1991, and it was really important to me to be able to give them this gift, to be able to say thank you in person.
Leaving at night during the worst storm season to avoid detection, the family became lost at sea for 10 days. As many ships passed by, it became clear their hope was fading.
We thought we were going to die, and when the ship appeared, it's heaven.
Well, it's a tremendous experience. It wasn't for my sister, I wouldn't even know these people existed.
I've heard so many stories from my mom about the event and how we were rescued and who rescued us, and it's incredible that my sister's been able to follow through with that and we're able to meet the people.
The LNG Virgo, a ship used to transport fuel from Indonesia to Japan, came to the aid of 62 refugees stranded at sea.
5 days after leaving Osaka, Japan, the word was out that there's a boat in distress in the water, and the captain made a decision to stop the ship and assist the people in the boat.
Kenny and I were the two that went aboard the boat. Kenny was on the boat picking children up and the adult, and I was on the foot of the gangway, and he passed them up.
It was purely out of compassion and seeing that these people were in distress. They were certainly signaling us that they were in distress, which is something that as a mariner, you answer that call.
The witnesses of the reunion gathered in the heart of Maritime College's museum for the unveiling of a special gift from the Vietnamese American community.
It's our pleasure to dedicate this bronze to the museum.
It's ships like the LNG Virgo that have saved close to 3,000 lives of Vietnamese refugees, just like the Vuong family. From BronxNet, Tatiana Parrish.
Thank you, Tatiana. A warming story there. Well, we have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Open right after this.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
The community in Sutherland, Texas continues to be in mourning today. This after a Texas gunman opened fire at the First Baptist Church during a worship service, killing 26 people and wounding 20 others. In that same week, a man decided to drive through a bicycle lane near the World Trade Center, killing, or I should say the former World Trade Center, killing 8 people and injuring 11. Some see both of these recent tragedies as an act of terrorism, while others view them differently. Now, here to discuss about what's going on here in New York, the domestic acts of terrorism, the effects that it's having on the country. We welcome now community activist Sheikh Musa Drame, who's here with us as well. And Sheikh, good to have you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Listen, as we talk about this here, obviously a lot of concern here in New York City. We walk around. I was in the airport just a little while ago, heightened security. You drive down Midtown, heightened security. And it's shades and reminiscent of 9/11. Talk to us about this new wave of terror and what it's done in the hearts and minds of New Yorkers.
Well, it is extremely unfortunate that, 16 years after 9/11, we're still dealing with violent religious extremists here and globally. I've traveled around the world. I've been to every continent, and what I see everywhere that I went is an explosion of inequities, haves and have-nots. So even in New York, we have individuals in our midst who refuse to acknowledge the toxic viral ideology among us. If you check my background, I've been threatened by even Muslim leaders and people of my own faith because of my outspokenness to these issues. After 9/11, my wife and I decided that as Muslims who live in the West and who love the fact that we are here now, we will never ever be quiet when Muslim terrorists or Islamic terrorists violate the sanctity of life, violate the sanctity of sacred places, and destroy the world in terms of, complaisance and, peace and tranquility and harmony. Now, the status quo is not sustainable and therefore must be discontinued. You cannot live without being able to congregate. You cannot go to house of worship. You cannot go to a stadium. You cannot go to a concert. You can't even go to a funeral. There is nothing that we can do now without being, scared of somebody coming, to harm us. Now, terrorism is terrorism. Every act of mass murdering must be classified terrorism. Unfortunately, it has not been the case, but nonetheless.
Do you classify Las Vegas as terrorism?
If 8 people who get killed by terrorists was correctly identified as terrorism, more than 40, 50 people must be definitely classified as terrorism, regardless of who the perpetrators are.
So you just call it domestic terrorism?
I don't care whether it's a domestic or international, but terrorism is terrorism. Every mass killing, we must begin to reconcile, atrocities as atrocities, violence as violence, criminal act as criminal act. You see, the sad thing now is that, especially the Muslim world, when tragedy happens and the perpetrator is not Muslim, it's like they don't feel, it's like they feel vindicated, all because they know that there's a default, bias against perpetrators, and which is a very, very sad reality now.
Let me jump in and ask the question here. So you have a situation last week. You have this guy who just plows down in Lower Manhattan. He gets police on a chase. They say before he's shot, he yells, "Allah Akbar." And obviously, people have connected that to the Muslim faith. And when you look at the Muslim faith and you hear incidents such as this, talk to us about the blowback that it has in the Muslim community when there's this huge distinction between what we're seeing in New York City and the life of the average Muslim that also lives and dwells here.
Absolutely. Well, number one, Islam has been here for as long as the U.S. has been here, number one. Number two, I would say every Friday, I would say 99 to 100% of the mosques all over the United States, you can walk into any mosque and what you hear is the same exact statement that you would hear from a church or synagogue or temple. People are happy to be living in a very peaceful, neighborhoods. They love to be neighborly to their neighbors. They love to have public safety for their children. All these things comes because unfortunately there's a biased default in the way we narrate things. The biggest terrorist in the world until today is a white man. The biggest terrorist actions are committed by white male. The biggest victims of terrorism is a black male in terms of race, and the biggest victims of terrorism religiously is a Jewish person. These are facts, but unfortunately, when it murder gives a global outcry versus 59 innocent celebrants, people begin to question what is the motive. Should there be more in-depth analysis on what is going on?
Walk us through a little bit a house of worship. And certainly when we see what's happened in Texas, people are just worshiping and a gunman opens fire. Talk to us from a spiritual perspective of what that means for you as a faith leader and someone who's also in the community, and you hear in a house of worship this occurs.
And
not to say that any place else it would occur, but specifically houses of worship.
Yeah, whenever tragedy occurs, people question, is this act of God or is this act of stupidity? And most acts is the result of policies and priorities. Most of what is going on can be prevented. As I said, I travel around the world and people are destitute, and they are destitute. Now, even if a person is a mentally challenged person, there can be a solution to that. But unfortunately, because the priority is wrong, now we only react. And when we react, we overreact. All these can be prevented. America produces more weapons than any other nation on the face of the earth. Donald Trump right now is traveling around the world, and what he's selling the most is weapons. And guess who's selling these weapons to? Their friends. And guess 5 years from now, their friends become the enemies. That is what's happening in Syria, in Libya, in Egypt, in everywhere, in Afghanistan.
So clarify what you mean for a viewer who says Donald Trump is a cross-seller of weapons.
Well, Donald Trump said, look what we did in Saudi Arabia. We sold them weapons, and now they were able to counter Yemeni weapons. Now, they want Japan to do the same thing, and they want South Korea to do the same thing. And these weapons end up in the hands of men and women who may be friends today and enemy tomorrow. That was happening in the Muslim world, and it happened everywhere. Now, let's come back to this terrorism. 2 years ago, I went to the United Nations, and I had the opportunity to meet with the chairman of ECOWAS. And what he said was, it's about economics. From the military deployment overseas, to the young crews in our housing projects, to religious extremists killing people indiscriminately. It's all about the economic situation. The have-lots and have-nothings. Everywhere you go, you see the gap widening. It's a sovereign wealth, sovereign nation, but very few people control it. So he said Boko Haram, for example, the average age of a member of Boko Haram is 16 years. The average daily income of Boko Haram member is over $3. And the region where Boko Haram commits all these atrocities, is below poverty level on the $2. 16-year-old, no education, not even a religious understanding, earns more than a civil servant. It's an enticement for more recruitment. We go to Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Somalia is a paradise without violence. I mean, it is the most strategically located nation in the Horn of Africa. It's all about economics. So you have beautiful hotels frequented by Western, and then you have 95% of the population who can't even have 3 meals a day. It's all about economics.
I want to get this question in before we wrap up here. I want to talk about the radical extremism and people being radicalized here. What can be done to really fight against this radicalization that we see that's happening here locally? Because this gentleman last week was somebody who was radicalized here.
The only way we can fight radicalism are two things. Number one, we got to be truthful. We must always be truthful in our dealings locally and internationally. That's the number one criteria, be truthful. We're not truthful. We are arming individuals that we deem friends who will later become enemy, and the enemy now must be fought, and that's a continuation of this problem. Now the radicalization, the second thing also is inequity. If you have sovereign wealth that is controlled by very few, which by the way, true here, even here in New York, you have 80 billionaires who lives in Manhattan, and you have the poorest congressional district here in the Bronx, 5 miles away. It is all about inequity and lying to the public. So in order for us to solve the problem of radicalization and extremism, we got to be truthful, and we have to have policies that prioritize, equality, not inequity.
All right, Sheikh Musa Drame, with his perspective, we thank you much for coming to share with us, Sheikh Musa Drame. Listen, taking a quick break, we'll have more open. We're going to recap yesterday's election results and what does exactly all of this mean. Our political commentator will be in studio to share more when we return.
I guess sometimes things just happen. Devastating things. Your whole world changes in an instant. That's what happened to me the day my mother had a stroke.
I'm Paul George, and I want you to spot a stroke fast.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911.
Protect the ones you love.
Spot a stroke fast.
Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
When they test you, stand firm and move only when you hear the seatbelt click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Well, last night, Democrats won big in the New York City general election. Mayor Bill de Blasio comes away with 66% of the vote. Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. was reelected as the Borough President of Bronx with 86% of the vote. In Council District 11, Andrew Cohen won with 84% of the vote. Over in District 12, Andy King won with 94%. And Mark Jonai won with 48% in District 13, beating John Serini with 35% of the vote. Now over in District 14, Fernando Cabrera won with 84%. Richie Torres won with District 15, and 94% of the people came out in support of Vanessa Gibson as she won again with District 16. Rafael Salamanca wins District 17 with 93%. And as we say, Ruben Diaz Sr. now won with 96%, well, I should say 96%. 18% of the vote goes to Costa Constantine, who won District 22 with 93% of the vote. Now, in other citywide races, Letitia James won again for New York City Public Advocate, beating out BronxNet political commentator J.C. Polanco, and Scott Stringer was reelected as New York City Comptroller with 76% of the vote. Now, what does all this mean? Where do we go from here? How do we break this down? Well, we've got now our political commentator and the owner of Retrovision Media, Lee Bynes, here with us. And Lee, good to have you.
Good to be back.
I guess the big question is that we did not talk about, in spite of all of this, was the low voter turnout. When we look at numbers yesterday, roughly about 20% of New Yorkers came out and voted when it came to the mayoral election, the lowest of any mayoral election in recent history. What are we to make of this?
Well, pretty much par for the course. The voter turnout has been pretty much low and sinking for quite some time now. I think it's a bit of a dissatisfaction with the process overall. But with regards to the city and your announcement that pretty much everybody who was expected to win did win. It was an incumbency election. If you were already in office, you pretty much had the name recognition, you had the funding, and you were pretty much a shoo-in as far as the city politics is concerned. This is a Democratic town. Anybody trying to break that stronghold that the Democrats have on the city is going to have a really, really tough climb. And you mentioned that J.C. Polanco, our friend and colleague here on this set on a regular basis, came out as a Republican trying to unseat the current public advocate. It just wasn't going to happen. It was, pretty much in the card that the status quo was going to remain that way for the foreseeable future here in New York. Anyway, broadening this out to a national circumstance, when you go over to New Jersey and you find out what happened down in Virginia, I think it took on more of a significance because I think a lot of these votes who were cast against Donald Trump, necessarily for the actual candidates. Donald Trump, in his general Trump fashion from China, this guy is having dinner over there, and he has time to tweet out that if Gillespie, that's the Republican running down to Virginia, had he embraced the Trump way and embraced the Trump values, he would have had a better chance to win. Doubtful. Again, I think a lot of folks around the country, save for one small spot in Utah, it was a blowout. It was a landslide. It was a bloodbath.
And if we go down to North Carolina, the governor's race in North Carolina now going to a Democratic seat. North Carolina, a heavy Republican seat. Are we seeing now the quote unquote anti-Trump movement taking a rising place?
I would have to agree with that 100%, but I would add the following. The Democrats had an encouraging night last night, no doubt about it, but they cannot feel satisfied. They still have a lot of work to do in terms of bringing the party together. There is a wide split, and it's growing. And I was wondering if there was going to be a Donna Brazile effect on this election, because she came out with her book indicating that there was a lot of shenanigans going on in the Democratic National Convention. She could have theoretically set a lot of people down. Put a lot of people to say, you know what, look, I understand that this process is rigged. Until I see a better a showing from the Democratic Party, I'm not going to vote. And that's why I say the Democrats have their work cut out for them, because right now the Trump is standing on, the only thing that he's standing on right now that's holding him up is the fact that he's trying to get this tax cut pushed through. What the Democrats need to do, rather than just say, hey, it's a tax cut for the rich and the poor and the middle class are going to suffer, they need to come up with a tax plan themselves and present it to the progressives and Democrats, and also those who voted for Donald Trump, just to say no to Hillary, and let them know, look, this is what our tax plan looks like. This is how it's going to be rolled out. This is who's going to receive cuts, and these are the ones who are going to pay more, and why. The same thing with health care and a variety of other issues that are facing the country right now. The Democrats have to actually stand up, hold a press conference. If they called a press conference today and said that we have the plan for a tax cut, the media will be all over it. If they came up with their the fixes that are necessary to repair Obamacare and let the country see what that looks like based upon what they're getting right now, the media will be all over it. So for them to sit back on their laurels and say that, yeah, we had a big night and we could probably replicate this event later on, I think they may be
But here in New York City, let's be honest, I mean, a highly Democratic city, and yet and still you got 20% of the people coming out. There's a huge apathy amongst Democratic voters that are out there going to the polls. What is it here in New York that's really keeping people from really going? Because this, as I said, is the worst for a mayoral election in the last 5 or 6. I mean, in recent history.
No question about it, but I think that apathy is due to something that your previous guest alluded to, and that's the fact that income inequality is so widespread, and the fact that that gap is actually growing as well. A lot of people don't feel like the voting process or the American political landscape is really going to make a difference in their lives. So a lot of times the only people that you find showing up at the polls is the extremes. Those who are paying close attention, those who feel that they do have a little skin in the game, those who feel that the voting process is going to increase their standard of living. And I think as time goes on, and there's so much money involved in these elections and the election process, a lot of folks feel like, look, I can't even afford to make a donation. So where do I fit in this? And that is probably one of the biggest challenges amongst Democrats, is being able to show them once again, this is how we're going to run our program in the future. This is what we're doing right now is going to be extremely helpful to you, and give them a reason to come out to vote, as opposed to just Donald Trump sucks. I mean, let's be frank, that is not enough over the long haul.
And what we're seeing right now is Mark Jonai, and as he had his race and he emerged victorious, he spent record numbers with regards to his campaign and really financing his campaign to get reelected. The money. Let's talk about the money that's out there right now. Not as much flowing as it used to be.
Well, specifically, definitely with the Democrats, there's not a lot of people out there that, especially low income to moderately income folks, they don't have enough money necessarily to kick in to be a part of the process. Therefore, the Democratic Party has to do what they have to do. Go to the big donors, the corporate donors, those who are going to foot the bill, but there's always strings attached to that money. And so people have actually come to realize that a $5, $10, $15 donation isn't going to really buy them any attention. In order to get attention from a politician today, you got to be able to cut a $25,000 check just to have lunch for them, or have access with them to get your point across and for you to be listened to. So if that's the way the process is playing itself out, I can understand why voters have decided to say, look, I can't even afford to be a part of this process.
What's our final take home from all this?
Well, I would say at the end of the day, the Democrats definitely have their work cut out for them. I would say that Donald Trump moving forward definitely has a hole to dig himself out of, and with all of the legal troubles that he has right now, it's still up in the air what's going to happen in 2018. So I wouldn't make any bets right now on the outcome.
All right, Lee Bonds, that's what we bring in. Thanks.
Good to be here.
All right, taking a quick break. Listen, stay tuned. We got more show coming up right after this. We'll be right back in a few.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you? Gary, financial aid forms. Biology homework, G. Picking a college, man. You and us go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos. one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer between men and women and the second most common cancer in the United States, according to the American Cancer Society. Now, here to tell us more about Saint Barnabas' lung cancer screening program, we welcome now the Director of Division of Pulmonary and Critical Medicine, Dr. Raghu Loganathan. And thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you very much, Daren. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. As we talk about this now, Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and we hear about lung cancer not knowing really how severe it is, but when we talked about in the intro about how prevalent it is, much of this could be possibly preventable with screening.
Absolutely. Lung cancer is the #1 cancer killer among both men and women. At least 400 people die each day of lung cancer. Each day of lung cancer, and it's a staggering number. And November is the lung cancer screening month, and I think it's a perfect time to talk about what strategies we have to detect lung cancer early. Unfortunately, lung cancer is detected quite often at a late stage where we have limited treatment options. And we have now an ability to detect lung cancer at an early stage, and that's the whole idea of implementing a lung cancer screening program.
And so, as you said, the earlier, of course, it's caught, the better it actually is. But when it's caught later on, the survival rate the numbers are pretty bad.
The numbers are actually quite bad. So among 100 lung cancers that are diagnosed at this time, less than 20% are diagnosed at an early stage. An early stage probably offers the best chance for cure. Unfortunately, a number of cancers are detected at a later stage, and the treatment options are limited, and certainly finding them early is probably the best way to manage lung cancer.
So SBH does have a lung cancer screening program. Let's walk through a little bit about what people how people can participate and take advantage of this.
So we implemented the lung cancer screening program this year, and it's one of the few centers in the Bronx that offers a very structured multidisciplinary program which talks about the various strategies to screen cancer early on. Patients need to understand that this is a partnership that they have to build with the physicians, understand what their personalized risk for developing lung cancer is, and understand what are the consequences of performing CAT scans and getting the CAT scans done early. At SBH, we offer a personalized tool for the patient in terms of what their risk for developing lung cancer is based on the smoking history. And most importantly, people who are continuing to smoke, what we call active smokers, we have a personalized management of how to stop smoking, what are the strategies that you have. So we have a multidisciplinary program. We're proud to have implemented this, one of the few centers in the Bronx that does this. And patients should talk to their physicians about see if they're eligible to get screening or not.
So for people who are out there watching right now saying, listen, I want to know about some possible symptoms, signs, what can you tell people about what are possible symptoms that really need you to do to get checked out?
I think more than symptoms, I think it is whether you're smoking or not and how much you've smoked. You need to understand that when lung cancer is detected because of symptoms, it's quite often late. So we actually want to detect lung cancer at an early stage, even before the symptoms start. So if you've been smoking, and the measure for estimating how much you've smoked is what we call pack years. So if somebody has smoked 1 packet of cigarettes, that's 20 cigarettes a day, for a year, it's called 1 pack year. And if somebody has smoked at least about 30 pack years, or if they have been smoking within the past 15 years, they would be eligible for lung cancer screening. They should talk to the physicians, and what we do there is a shared decision with the patient. We talk about what their personalized risk is. We talk about whether it's the right option for that particular patient and what they should expect with the CAT scan. The CAT scan is actually a very simple test. It's done in less than 10 or 15 minutes, but it's important to understand what it means to get the lung cancer screening and also explore opportunities to stop smoking if they're continuing to smoke.
How receptive for people to take advantage of the opportunity to do this? Because, you know, some people are very resistant, we have.
Well, I think it's awareness of what the options are. Until recently, we didn't have the evidence or the recommendations from various societies to start screening. A few years back, there was a multi-center trial that showed that, and this looked at least 50,000 patients, and they found that there was a 20% reduction in mortality due to lung cancer if we screen for lung cancer and detect it early. So I don't think there's an awareness of this. Quite often people wait for symptoms like a cough or shortness of breath or coughing up blood, but that often unfortunately is late. We really have to target people who have smoked within the past 15 years. If they've quit smoking, they should congratulate themselves on quitting smoking. It's not easy, but they should talk about screening at that point in time. If they're active smokers, then they really need to talk about strategies to quit smoking and also see if they're eligible to get lung cancer screening or not.
So Saint Barnabas Hospital is the place that you can come for lung cancer screening. This is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. Dr. Raghu Loganathan is here with us and sharing with us a little bit about lung cancer awareness and what is the most important things that people should know?
If you're a smoker, there are multiple ways how the healthcare community can help you quit smoking. Second, if you're smoked for a period of duration, and if you want to know what your risk is, there are multiple tools on the website. Speak to your physician, give us a call. We will sit down and talk to you all. Coming to see us in the lung cancer screening program does not mean that you have to be enrolled. We can make the decision together, and maybe getting a CAT scan can save your life. The American Lung Association has put out a message this month, saved by a scan, and I think that's probably what can happen. So your life could be potentially saved by getting a CAT scan to screen for lung cancer.
Now, you guys are one of the first hospitals to actually have this program. What do you think it means for you in the Bronx and the city?
I think we're very happy and very proud to have built this program. It takes a lot of effort. It has to be done in a very systematic fashion. Like I said, the actual act of getting the CAT scan is 10 or 15 minutes, but there's so much more that goes with it. We want to make sure the CAT scans are done with the right protocol. We use low-dose radiation CAT scans to minimize the harm of getting any side effects for the patients. We have very good patient navigators who will help the patients and their families walk through the system, give reminders before the clinic visits, give them reminders before their CAT scan appointments. And most importantly, you're having a face-to-face discussion with a pulmonary physician who talks to you about your personalized risk for lung cancer, what it means to have an abnormal CAT scan. A number of patients who undergo screening will have abnormal results on a CAT scan, but it doesn't mean it's cancer. So you have somebody who will walk you through this process and hopefully decrease the mortality of lung cancer through the screening program.
So for people who want more information, what exactly do they do?
They can go to the Saint Barnabas Health System website. They can call the clinic number to set up an appointment. It is 718-960-3730. I hope I got that right.
You got that right? You got that right.
I got that right. So I think it's, and they can talk to their primary physicians and have them refer to us, or they can have a direct appointment to see us. And anybody who's between the ages of 55 and 77, those at least are the eligibility criteria at this time, and who are smoked, they should really talk to their physicians about looking at lung cancer screening. It saves lives. It's I would say it's a new tool that we have in the past few years, and it also gives a perfect opportunity to talk about smoking cessation for people who are continuing to smoke.
Dr. Raghu Loganathan, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. As we said, this is Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and if you want to become a part of the lung cancer screening program that Saint Barnabas Hospital has, please use the number to call. Once again, that number is 718-960-3730, and be sure to talk to Dr. Loganathan or anybody over there at Saint Barnabas Hospital. I'm sure they'll be able to point you in the right direction. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good to have you, Dr. Raghu Loganathan. Listen, stay with us. We're coming right back with more Open. Be right back in a few.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
If you want to stay in the know about the latest happenings in Español, check out Diálogo Abierto, BronxNet's own Spanish show, Wednesdays 6:30 p.m. on Channel 67. The latest in news, arts, culture, politics, and what's going on in your neighborhood. Diálogo Abierto, the best way to stay connected in Spanish. See you there. Te esperamos.
The National Society for Black Engineers and the Society for Hispanic Engineers have teamed up for the 4th annual hackathon, giving yet another opportunity for those of all backgrounds a chance to build something for their community. Here now to tell us more, we welcome now the president of Lehman's chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers, Rosemarie Encarnacion, and we thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here, Rosemarie. And so, as we talk about a hackathon, I think it comes with a certain connotation, but so let's clear it up for people who don't know what a hackathon is. What exactly is a hackathon?
Of course. So there's actually no hacking involved.
No hacking?
No, not at all. We're not hacking into anything. Think of a hackathon as sort of a marathon, everybody moving towards the same or similar goal for a certain uninterrupted period of time. And that's pretty much exactly what we're doing at our hackathon. It's 18 hours where students will be building, designing, producing content and hardware, software applications, mobile applications towards a specific challenge that meets our theme this year, which is diversity and inclusion.
Awesome. So for people who want to come and take part in this, it's going to be right here at Lehman College.
This is, yes.
And so for people who are coming out to Lehman College, you can have an opportunity to do this here. And so give us a little bit about the theme.
Yes, of course. So our theme this year is diversity and inclusion, and I know that's a hot topic, especially in the tech space now. But for us, it's very personal because Lehman College itself is over 70% Black and Latino, and the surrounding community it serves very much reflects that, as well as the other members of the community, which are disabled, women and children, in general, marginalized voices. And we felt it was important for us to highlight and encourage and promote the talent that's already here in the Bronx through Lehman College, and also encourage them to create and build things for inclusivity to make sure that those marginalized voices are included in any kind of conversation.
And so these voices that we are talking about here, taking part in this hackathon and being a part of this hackathon, for you as an engineer, what does this mean for you?
For me, it's an exciting opportunity for anybody who's participating to put their skills to the test, to learn, to get past their own limits. I know when I've been involved in hackathons, I've learned way more than I came in with. And also to see what comes out of it, because ultimately the projects that come out of here are going to be geared towards solving problems in the community that are around diversity and inclusion. It'll be really interesting, and I'm excited to see the results at the end of the hackathon for what students represent. So for me, it's a very good selfish opportunity for me to see what students can build, and also for the community in general to see what they can build, and especially at Lehman College and in the Bronx.
And it sounds like a great opportunity for some camaraderie.
Yes. So most of the students who are attending the hackathon have, one, never been to the hackathon, to a hackathon in general, and probably don't know each other, and that's usually the case. You're going there solo, you've probably don't have a team, never met anybody before. So it's a way for students to meet each other and connect with each other across CUNY, and also for them to meet recruiters, because we will be having, we have 11 sponsors this year. We have our title sponsor, which is MasterCard, and we're very thankful for them for supporting us, as well as other sponsors, including Viacom, BuzzFeed, JP Morgan, who is now in their third year sponsoring us, as well as Goldman Sachs and a few other sponsors.
And so for engineers, obviously, you guys coming together, kicking it around, talking, and sharing. What are some of those community problems that you talk about addressing? What do you find yourselves really trying to look at and deal with?
So I don't want to give away the challenge questions,
okay.
But I will talk in general about what we're looking to see and target. And diversity, you may think of it as just basically gender or race, but it's more than that. It's people with disabilities, people that come from low-income communities, like our community, and also women, children. There are many different types of diverse voices, and the kind of issues that we're tackling are things in technology. So diversity and inclusion in technology to make sure that people who don't have access to digital tools or digital literacy can participate in technology, education as well, finance, and social and community impact, which has to deal with people with disabilities and making sure that we build inclusively for them to be involved in the digital world.
So if people want to take part in this, how do they go about it?
Well, right now, registration is closed, but if you'd like to see the presentations or if you want to participate or support in any other way, they can email us at ns.lehman@lc.cuny.edu, or they can go to our website.
So for the hackathon, is it the biggest event that you have during the course of the year? Or?
Yes, it definitely is. Planning starts at the very beginning of the year in January. So it is our marquee event for the chapters and to some extent also for Lehman College.
And what else do you have going on throughout the course of the year?
Oh boy, there's a lot. This year we've had sponsor workshops with companies like Yelp, Capital One, as well as JP Morgan. And throughout the year we do company trips. We do tech talks, we do skill building workshops on certain technical topics, as well as topics on learning how to communicate, how to pitch to recruiters in general, making sure that the students involved in the organization are well prepared to go into industry or to just be involved in the tech community in general.
So if people want to take more information, you can go to nshacks.nlehman.com and you can find out more information right there. It's coming up at the bottom of your screen. There you can see more about the hackathon. You got the flyer there and some prizes.
Yes, we do. So for the top 3 teams, we have $3,000 in prizes that we are giving, as well as our sponsors who are also bringing prizes. JP Morgan has a challenge for their social good hack, and Capital One also has a challenge for their best financial hack. So there are a lot of opportunities to win for the students, as well as they're going to be fed throughout the entire time. And there will be recruiting at the hackathon as well, which is very, very great because it gives students an opportunity not only to show what they have, but directly connect with recruiters so they can hopefully land an internship or a job from this.
Well, we want people to come on out and take part and hear what's going on. You said registration is closed, but actually to see the participation. So
yeah,
thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, listen, before we go, I want to tell you that this is our Talk About Savor of the Bronx Restaurant Week. We want to profile a very special restaurant that has some very special cuisine, and we're going to take a look at that restaurant right now.
I think what makes Havana Cafe special or different is just our overall environment. It's not just a restaurant.
80% of our guests are return customers, which is wonderful for us. Become a neighborhood gem. This is a restaurant that serves predominantly Cuban dishes.
We have a really well-rounded menu. We have vegetarian, we have vegan options. We also have great sandwiches. Regardless of what you're looking for, we have traditional Latin food, we have traditional Cuban food, but we also have lighter fare. We have a very well-rounded menu, and there's something for everybody.
So we have mojitos. Our bartenders are first class.
Our mojitos are hand muddled, every single one. What people should expect when they come here is that they encounter a family-friendly environment.
I think most of all, what I want people to experience and walk away with is a feeling that they walked in somewhere where they were made to feel like they were at home.
The overall ambiance, the overall feel of family and community and comfort and friendliness that they encounter when they come here. It's genuine, and I think people, they sense that.
To me, Latin cuisine is really an emotion. It has a lot to do, obviously, with good ingredients, but it's about the passion that you put into the food that you do. And that's what we want people to feel when they come here.
And definitely some great food at the Havana Cafe. Make sure you check them out over there on East Tremont. As part of Savor the Bronx Restaurant Weekend, I want to let you know Restaurant Week goes until the 16th of the month. Now, if you want more information of the participating restaurants, there are a bunch of participating restaurants that you can go and get your palate fed. Listen, you go to ilovethebronx.com, and there you'll find out the participating restaurants in Restaurant Week. There's still time, so make sure you go on out and check it out. Listen, we've come to the end of our show today, and yes, I want to thank our guests for joining us, but most of all, I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, make sure you catch the recablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum's Channel 67. If you don't have that, you got Verizon Fios. We're on 33, or catch us anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. I'm Daren Jaime. Been a pleasure coming to your homes. Make sure to keep this channel wide open. We say take care and God bless. Until next time.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.